Hello everybody, and thank you for choosing to watch another video from this channel. Today I'm going to talk about HPLC columns and when it is the time to, let's say, discard them or get rid of them. In YouTube you may find a lot of videos on this related to HPLC columns. They have probably coming with different titles. Maybe they say column care, HPLC column care. Maybe they talk about the HPLC peak splitting, improving your peaks, so on and so forth. But when you listen to these videos, you may find that they all talk about the same thing. The main reason is that all these issues related to HPLC columns they are all related. The peak splitting HPLC column, it is very much related to the contaminant. Or when you, let's say, wash the column, how you want to wash the column, that will improve your peak shapes. So I have a different type of columns here, and I was thinking about maybe just opening them up and show you what it is inside this column before I show you the slides. I have different types. I don't want to get into detail of what types they are, but HPLC columns are made of metallic tubes, and then you have the silica or modified silica inside. So I'm going to open one of them, and well, I loosened it up already a little bit, so this is kind of easy to take off. So we see the silica inside, and we have this components that we have tubing attached, and inside this part we have a filter that it will blocks the large particles going to the column. Now in my slideshow I will talk about how you could improve or revitalize the HPLC by replacing this part. I'm going to put this away. I'm going to open the second one. Again, I loosened this up already, so it's not that difficult to open it. Now this brand, it has some sort of cap on top of it, and it's not easy to take it off, so I'm going to use the tool here, and okay, so I take it off. Now with this brand, instead of buying the whole metallic tip, you actually can, oh, this came off actually. So instead of buying this metallic filter, you buy this consumable part that you just toss it and just replace it, and you put on top of this column. So I'm going to put these two together, that we don't mix up. I'll put the extra one away. Whereas this one, you have the metallic part that probably is the more expensive, and you could attempt to sonicate it and get rid of the particles to see if you can improve your HPLC column. Whereas this one, you just buy and replace. Now, as you can see, the problem is that I already lost some silica. So I'm not sure if the supplier of this column can sell you extra silica to put it on top or replace it, because now we have a situation that I have a little bit of a gap at the top of my column, and that's gonna significantly affect my peak shape. This brand is somehow silica remain, but wasn't very massive. I tried to tap and get rid of some of them. Yes, it is loosening up, so I'm gonna have a gap. So in either way, if you are attempting to replace these parts to regenerate your column, you definitely need to have some sort of filling to put on top of the column. Now, the loss of the silica probably is the main reason people don't do this practice. So when the columns start to not perform the way that they wanted, they either try to do a lot of washing to see if it's improving or not. But rarely you will see people saying that open up and change these components, although the supplier will supply you that. And the getting back these silica or making sure that you put this column back to its original condition is not that easy. And this is probably the main reason, as I said, I'm just repeating, that people will shy away from doing these sort of practices. Anyway, I'm going to go back to my computer and I will continue this video by showing you more slides. Talk to you soon. Okay, hello everybody. So I'm going to continue this video by showing you some slide, and I'm going to talk about the baseline noise and or bad peak shape, and I'm going to discuss about if it is time to get rid of your column, toss it in the garbage, or you would be able to regenerate it. So there are major areas that may associate with your column that leads to these problems. You may face high back pressure that you usually see, or maybe there is a high back pressure that leads to system shutdown. You may see poor peak shape. Your peak used to be sharper, now it is gradually becomes broad or it changes shape. Or number three is that sometimes you see a very poor baseline, and they all could be related to your column, and some of them are not. Now, the back pressure, you see high back pressure. Now you have to ask, is it coming from your column, or maybe it is something is not related to your column? Now, in this picture, we have a kind of like a cartoon of the HPLC system, that we have the HPLC pump, you got the auto sampler in the middle, and then you have the column at the bottom. And now, in order to figure out if the back pressure comes from your column or not, is a very simple test. You just remove your column, put the union, and restart the pump. And if you see high back pressure, then it has nothing to do with your column. But if you see no pressure at all, or very low pressure, then yes, that confirms it that the back pressure is the result of the your column, HPLC column, that has a lot of stuff stuck in it. Now, as I said, if you remove your column and you see a lot of back pressure, high back pressure, then there's definitely something stuck in your HPLC. The purge valve is a one place that you could probably open it up and remove the filter. Although the purge valve that we are talking about is more related to the Agilent systems, I really try to avoid mentioning the manufacturer of HPLCs. But this slide, it is obtained from the Agilent, so I need to mention their system. Waters probably they don't have even a purge valve, or maybe Shimatsu system they don't. So because this slide comes from Agilent, then I out to say that yes, like with the Agilent system, there is a filter in the purge valve. This is the place you want to replace it. It's a very easy process. Or maybe there are blockage in some other ports that it needs to be taken out. Now, if you take the column out, then you see no pressure at all, or very low pressure, then it indicates that the column needs to be washed and regenerated. Now, column washing procedure, you will find a lot of information in internet. They give you a whole bunch of ways to wash the column, and I have copy paste one of them, that you wash the system. You try to get rid of the buffer first with the elevated temperature, then you want to do a DMSO injection to get rid of all these water soluble or water miscible organics removed, and so on and so forth. But these procedures will ensure that chemicals that are soluble and are causing the blockage will be washed out. Sometimes the blockage is not due to soluble chemicals. There are particulates in there, or insoluble particulates, that you have a bigger problem. So this is not going to help you. Regardless of how much you do the washing, you still have a column that it will giving you very poor peak shape. Now, this is a very nice slide that shows the peaks when the column is normal, and when the peaks, the shape of peaks when the column will have these particulates build up on the frit. That these frits I show you when I was showing you the dismantling the HPLC column. I show you where the frits are. So the frits will cause the peak tailing or peak splitting. And these frit caps, I show you one manufacturer had frit caps, so you could open it up and just replace the frit caps. This is your last resort. The best approach is that do the backflow. Let's say whatever the flow is, the column indicates that you have to, let's say, go the direction of the flow. You just reverse it and do a lot of backflow, and maybe that will help you. But in my experience, like the experience that I had, most of the time backflow didn't help me, because I had not just particulates, but I had these polymers that they built, and they got hooked up or clogged these frit caps. That most of the time in my application, I don't know, maybe others, my application replacing frit caps was the solve my problem. Although it is a last resort, but usually this last resort helped me the most. The washing procedures and backflow will help the columns that they're being used with the methods which are isocratic. So maybe in your company or your laboratory, you do a lot of isocratic, and over time you have these insoluble chemicals that start to build up. So when you do a backflow or you do your washing procedure, they will regenerate. But my application, the work that I do, we do a lot of gradient, but we have the gradient moving toward the very high organic, and it does the washing all the time. So what it is building up on my column is not going to be washing, not going to help it. So most of the time I had to actually replace the frit caps, or actually do these aggressive tactics to regenerate my column. We have a lot of nice picture here, that we have the good peak to the left, then we have the conditions that we see. Maybe peak start to do tail, then, or maybe peak start to front, or split, or gives you shoulder, or give you broad peaks, and all of them are can be explained by what is happening in the column. So when you see bad peak, regardless of fronting, splitting, broadening, or whatever, you have two choices: either get rid of the column, get a new one, or try to restore it to the original. In pharmaceutical industries, their hands are tied. They're not going to do a lot of restoring in a sense of opening up the column and replacing the frit. They probably have a procedure to do the washing. It doesn't work, just get a new one. Maybe if you are in, I don't know, like a small laboratory, maybe if you are in, let's say, university or academic, then your hands are kind of loose. You can do whatever you want, and probably this slideshow and all these opening up the column will help you the most. But in the pharmaceutical industry, because of the regulation that we have, or they have, they are very limited to how much they can do in a restoration, other than washing. This is all they're gonna do. But they do a lot of tossing the column in the garbage can. They do a lot, and they look at the column as a consumable rather than something that you should like keep on using it forever. Okay, now let's talk about these poor peak shapes and have a better understanding of what's happening. We have a picture here that we have the normal peak shape to the right, which is sharp peaks, and then we have the picture to the left that shows peak fronting. Now, this scenario that we see here is nothing to do with your column, nothing to do with your HPLC. It is very much related to your method. Now, the problem with the peak to the left is that the sample solvent, it is 100% acetonitrile, which is a high organic, and whereas your mobile phase is only 18% acetonitrile. So in this scenario, in your method, if you do injection using 100% acetonitrile, for sure you're gonna see peak fronting for the early eluting peaks, the one that comes earlier. But if the peaks that reside in the column, longer they stays, the effect is a lot less. So solution to your problem is that to avoid this peak fronting, your mobile phase shouldn't be too much organic compared to the sample solvent shouldn't contain too much organic versus your mobile phase. So it should be some sort of I'm not saying that use this mobile phase as your sample solvent, but there should be some balance. So in this picture, the poor peak fronting or poor peak shape has nothing to do with your HPLC column nor your system. It is method related. Now, in this slide, we see the chromatography, which is nice to the left with the pH 3, and then we have chromatography. It looks like an elevated baseline with the tailing at the pH 7. Again, this poor peak shapes or poor baseline is method related. It is caused by having the high pH when your actives are all amine or base, and they started to interact with your HPLC column. In this case, you got a C8 column, probably you got some free silanol that they started to interact with your amine. So the solution is that to have the mobile phase pH drop down to pH 3. So once again, in this case, the poor peak shape is nothing to do with your system or HPLC column. It is very much method related. Now we have a situation here. I think it is peak number 3, the small peak. It is single peak, and then after 30 injections, it starts to become like a doublet. And then it says that after washing the column with acetonitrile, the peak 3 becomes again singlet but very sharp. So what is happening here is that your HPLC column, the method that we are looking at is some sort of isocratic method, that as you are injecting your sample, the contaminant start to build up on top of the column, and as you do more injections, the more contaminant will build up and causing your peak to start to split or even loses the intensity. So the solution for this condition, this criteria, is that most likely the isocratic method is not going to work for the system, and it should be gradient, that the pump, let's say mobile phase 2 with a higher organic, or even up to maybe something close to 100% acetonitrile to wash contaminate after every injection. So again, this is kind of like a method related, and also the cause is the column contamination. There is no reason to toss the column in the garbage after every 30 injection. That's not the solution. So the better solution is that to modify the method that have a washing cycle at the end of each injection. Now we have a poor peak shape due to the creation of a void volume on top of your column. In this case, that we have a the HPLC column that has been damaged. This damage could be because the high pH is used and actually melted away some of the silica. Sometimes there are extremely high pressure is applied to the column that over time start to create a void volume on top of the column. Sometimes people will have these gradient conditions that it will create a shock to the column, maybe at the beginning or maybe close near the wash cycle or whatever the program is, creates an excessive pressure after each injection or during each injection cycle, and over time the column is damaged. And I wasn't being able to regenerate this kind of criteria, other than maybe if you're academic, you want to open it up and remove some of the column material, do the refilling and see if you can regenerate the column. Usually, most of the time at this stage, especially when it is being exposed to the, like, let's say, extremely high pH, and you very much destroy the stationary phase, it is time to get rid of it and buy a new one. Now, you may face a poor baseline that, as we see on this slide, the majority of the poor baseline comes from the system itself. You have a leak in the system. Maybe you did not connect the column properly to the HPLC system. Maybe there is an air bubble in the system. Maybe mobile phase is contaminated. Maybe the lamp is weak. It's just time to replace the lamp. All these would cause the poor baseline. It is probably most of them are nothing to do with the HPLC column that you have, or maybe your column is damaged to the point that it start to have these gaps at the top, the void volume, and then you need to either wash or clean your column. So there is a number of reasons for the poor baseline, but the majority of them are HPLC related rather than your column. Thank you very much for watching this video, and the references are Agilent Technology, Shimatsu, Waters, or other column manufacturer websites that they had information, and I borrowed their slides, their material. And if you like this video, I appreciate you push the like button. And if you want to write a comment, or you had a situation that you had a, let's say, HPLC column that was not performing well and you managed to fix the problem and you want to share the information with us, I really appreciate that you write a comment, and I definitely will reply to you, and I enjoy reading all your comments. Thank you very much and have a great time.